Good morning, class. I'm coming to you on Monday, May the 11th, and this recording is part one for May 12th class, which would be tomorrow. So this is part one. I hope everyone had a wonderful weekend. So many beautiful days and pleasant temperatures. We are going to be spoiled because soon it's going to get hot, really hot. But this is so nice. I know that many of you celebrated Mother's Day this weekend in some way with your family, and hopefully you had an opportunity to celebrate your mothers who may be living in other parts of the world, and perhaps your other mother figures. We call that in the United States, a mother figure is someone who is not your biological mother, but who is like a mother to you. So we often celebrate those wonderful people in our lives. So perhaps you were able to do the same, and that you also were celebrated in your own home by your own family. I wanted to talk just a few minutes today about Mother's Day, about the history of Mother's Day in the United States. We know that the celebration of mothers is something that is done worldwide. Various traditions in various countries. The celebration days occur at many different times of the year, depending on what various countries' traditions are. And some of the Mother's Day traditions are very, very old, more than just centuries old, but going back to, for instance, the Greek goddesses and the celebration of women and mothers in that particular culture, just to name one. So your own Mother's Day cultures or Mother's celebration cultures would be interesting for me to read about. I've read about a number of different ones in recent days and find them all very endearing to learn about. Here in the United States, Mother's Day is a relatively young tradition. The idea for Mother's Day was originally in the mind of a woman whose name was Anne Jarvis. Anne Jarvis was born in 1832. She was born and lived in the northeastern part of the United States, starting with Virginia, which is not really quite northeastern. It's considered more of a middle or southern, southeastern state, but lived in Virginia, primarily in Pennsylvania. And Anne Jarvis was a mother of note, you might say. She had 12 children. That makes her a notable mother right there. Unfortunately, of her 12 children, 8 of them did not survive through their young adulthood. They were killed by illnesses and by the Civil War, as it raged through the country during those years between 1860 and 1865. So of her 12 children, she only had 4 who survived. But Anne Jarvis was very concerned about helping other people. That was her main focus in life. She had certainly seen suffering herself in her own home, losing so many children, and she felt that women needed to come together and serve families in need or individuals in need. And so she began something called the Mother's Day work groups. Now, there wasn't an official Mother's Day. She just happened to use that term. And what would happen she would gather mothers together who would be willing to give their time and their energy. And she would give them a job to do. And it was a mission type job. They weren't paid for it. So if a mother had particular skills in caring for sick people, maybe she was a nurse, or just very well suited to being a caregiver of illness, then this mother would do those kinds of jobs. If someone was particularly good at caring for babies or helping mothers to deliver babies, then there would be people in these work groups who could do that. Certainly people who enjoyed cooking and could cook meals that would serve a lot of people and that would help a lot of families. So some people would cook or do gardening, different kinds of jobs that were voluntary and that were to help other people. And this was really her passion in life, to do that. And she saw so many wonderful things emerge, to come from. Emerge means to come out of something. So she saw so many wonderful things come out of these gifts of time and energy and effort that women gave to other people. And she began to feel that as a country we need to honor the women who do give so much of themselves every day, whether it's in their own homes or whether it's in giving to other people. And she began to talk about that. She was very religious, and at her church, when she taught her church classes, she would talk about the need to take note of what the women in our society do for one another and for the less fortunate people around them. She did not want this to be an honor that involved gifts or money, payment. She simply wanted it to be recognition that women contributed in very, very important ways. Her daughter, Anna Marie Jarvis, then grew up hearing this from her mom. She grew up knowing that her mom was a giver and brought people together in these work groups to do the job of caring for others, giving to others, taking care of their needs. So Anna Marie saw this all of her life, and she knew that her mother had this really deep wish that women, mothers, would be honored in an official way for the good things that mothers do. And so Anna Marie made it part of her personal mission in life to carry out her mom's work. She continued to encourage groups of women who were mothers to take their mothering outside of the home and help other people in the community. And she made sure that after her mother died, that she established a day that was a celebration of her mom's life, and that would be the start to a national celebration of women in the United States. Now, it started out rather small because of the times that Anna Jarvis lived in. She held a small service at her church in Pennsylvania in the year 1907. By the way, her mom died in 1905. And in 1907, Anna Marie held a service in her church. It was a Methodist church, a Christian church. And in the service, she talked to the congregation, the people who were there, about her mom and about mothers in general, and that mothers are very selfless people. They don't think of themselves, they think of others. And she established there in that church an annual celebration called Mother's Day. It was a couple of years later that Mother's Day became an official holiday recognized in the state of Pennsylvania, and then it began to kind of filter out from there, and other communities in other states began to hear about, this idea, and began to also join in on the celebration. Now, Anna Marie was very, very specific about what that celebration should look like. She did not think that this should be a celebration of expensive gifts, of lots of party atmosphere, okay? She was a quiet person. Her mother had been a quiet person, thoughtful, and their idea was that it would be a quieter celebration where people honored their mother through writing notes and letters to their mothers, perhaps giving a gift that was handmade, and particularly giving flowers, but not like we think of today necessarily, big bouquets of flowers. The idea was to give one flower, and that flower was the carnation, and the idea was to give a white carnation, that would be the symbol for Mother's Day, would be the white carnation. And this was her idea. And so she was very perplexed to find, as time went along, that people were buying jewelry and household furnishings and clothing and things like this as gifts for Mother's Day. She didn't agree with that. And she began to speak out. She became an activist about not only honoring mothers, but of honoring mothers in the right way. And she began to, say to people, this is not what this celebration is about. It's not about expensive gifts. And, have you written your mother a note? Have you written a poem for your mother? Have you written down a story that's special about your mother? These are the things that matter. And don't forget about the carnation. And I have a picture here of a white carnation. It's a very common flower at any florist. You see it in the floral departments in the grocery stores. She said, don't forget about the carnation. That's a symbol. Excuse me, that's the symbol. Later, people began to think, well, if you can give a white carnation, why can't you give red carnations? And so people began to give red carnations instead of white carnations, or with the white carnations. So that bothered Anna Marie. That wasn't her original idea, but in time it became an accepted practice in the United States to give a white carnation for mothers who we are honoring who are no longer with us, okay? So our mothers who have died, and we want to continue to honor them, the white carnation. The red carnation, because red and is a symbol, for blood, and blood is a symbol for life. Red carnations would be given to your living mothers. So that has actually stuck, and you will find people who do that today. Or if you go to a special service, such as a church service, you might see someone wearing on their dress, or a man on his coat, a red carnation, and that means that he is honoring his living mother. Or white carnation, he is honoring, or she is honoring, a mother who has passed on. When Anna Marie died in 1948, she died actually very poor herself. She never made a good living, and she was quite aware that the card companies around the world and the jewelry companies and all these were making quite good livings. They were doing quite well economically because of the holiday that she established. Now, later, a little bit later in her life, President Woodrow Wilson did make Mother's Day a national holiday, and he did give credit to Anna Marie, and he did encourage that this holiday be a holiday that honors mothers everywhere. Another thing that Anna Marie was very specific about it. I want to show you this because I think it's kind of funny. She also was very specific about how we write Happy Mother's Day, or how we write Mother's Day. This is a conversation that goes on in a lot of classrooms, and it goes on in a lot of homes when someone is writing a card on Mother's Day. She said that she officially wanted Mother's Day to be written in the singular possessive. Okay? In the singular possessive. Because each person in their heart and in their mind is speaking of their own mother or their own mother figure. So instead of the plural possessive, okay, or instead of just plural, she made a very big deal that it be written in the singular possessive. Now, I didn't know that for many years. I didn't know that she had established the rule, and I was always, is it plural possessive or is it singular possessive? Is it mothers or is it mother? I usually did this because I usually thought about it as being to my mother. Now I know that she made that as part of the rule, and since she established this day and gets credit for that, then I think we need to follow Ann Jarvis's rule. So I hope that this little bit of information has been interesting for you, and that if you haven't celebrated your mother yet, and you're waiting for whatever special day in your culture that event occurs, I hope that you will think about gifts from the heart, and that as long as it's something of significance and important, I think that certainly we can give tangible gifts that are are thoughtfully given as well. I think she was a little bit extreme in saying it should involve no gifts. But as long as they're personal, I think that's what matters the most. And I'd love to know what you think. All right. I'll talk to you later.